Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist, composer, and educator Victor Gould. His latest 2019 CD, Thoughts Become Things, is another stellar one in a line of releases from this emerging jazz cat. He was born in Los Angeles and is now residing in New York City. He started playing piano at the age of 4 and began his career as one of the first ever recipients of the Herbie Hancock Presidential Scholarship at the Berklee College of Music. Over his time here in the craft, he has performed and recorded with Esperanza Spalding, Terence Blanchard, Branford Marsalis, Nicholas Payton, Ralph Peterson, the great Donald Harrison, Buster Williams, and so many others, and he's learned a great deal from each. He's a star in the world of jazz, and for very good reason, so please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, Victor, it's an honor, a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz, man.
Oh, yeah, thank you for having me.
You bet. And I love the title. In fact, I just had the title track off Thoughts Become Things on my show last week, and we were just talking about how, you know, there's certain phrases that are just totally profound and totally true. And if there was anything in the world of jazz that really resonates, thoughts always do become things. And this is a great album, and it was a pleasure to play it. And I want to start.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And I want to start right off at the top. What a lush, full album this is. I mean, the orchestration behind it, the jazz vibe, you got Jeremy, you got Mr. Stevens, you got so much going on this album. So tell me, what was your artistic vision with this project?
You know, from the start, I just wanted to try to be as honest as possible to what I was hearing in my head. You know, the record label gave me a lot of freedom to kind of just compose and, you know, to tell them later what I wanted to do, you know, as we got closer to the date. You know, as I was composing, I kept hearing more and more instruments. I didn't plan originally for it to be as big as it was, but, you know, that's what it just came out to be. I studied orchestration in school, and I've actually done, you know, some pieces for orchestra, and I'm studying with that. So I did want to incorporate that at some point. I just didn't know it would come this soon. I did some of that in my first album, Clockwork, but you know, I think it came together nicely.
You started playing the piano. You were raised in LA, and you started playing the piano at 4. Is it just natural to say that this was always kind of in your DNA and this was what you were destined to do with your life?
Piano has always been a part of my life, and so has jazz. I didn't really realize that I was going to pursue it as a career until maybe 10th grade, when I decided to leave the public school I was at and switch to an art school, LA County High School for the Arts. But it's always been a part of my life. My dad is a flautist with a huge jazz collection, so that made it natural, you know, that made things natural for me to make that transition. But yeah, jazz has always been a part of my life. It, you know, it makes sense the way things panned out.
What were some of the early jazz albums you listened to or musicians that really got you going?
Herbie Hancock, of course, Bud Powell, and Horace Silver. We listened to a lot of Horace Silver coming up. And let's see, you know, Wynton Kelly and Miles Davis. Also, Lonnie Liston Smith is actually a name that I don't mention much, that my dad always loved him, and there was a lot of that playing in the house. I don't know if that got to me subconsciously, or if that influenced me. Surely it has. But also Hubert Laws, you know, the list goes on.
So what was it like to go to an arts high school? I always hear, you know, there's special schools like in New Orleans and in Houston, and there's these specialty schools. They really do good work and groom students to get out there and actually do what you're doing.
Right, yeah, it was great. And I really, you know, was able to appreciate it from coming from the public high school for 2 years, and then doing the arts high for 2 years, completely different. Arts high was pretty much like college, you know. Of course, I learned that later, you know, as I went to college. It was, you know, the flow of that was natural because of the way they they functioned at the Arts High. It was also great to be around so many focused people. You know, looking back, I'm still impressed at how focused we were at such a young age. And the instructor at the time, Jason Goldman, he put in a lot of extra time and energy with us, and I'm really grateful to have him. He really changed the path of my life as far as like letting me know how serious this profession is and what it really takes to move to New York and be a full-time musician. Yeah.
You mentioned that Herbie was an early influence on you, and you were the first ever recipient of the Herbie Hancock Presidential Scholarship at the Berklee College of Music. That had to be a moment where you probably had to pinch yourself to kind of come full circle and have that happen.
Yeah, that was really amazing. Such an honor, and I don't know, things seem to just come together so naturally. It was just really a blessing. I don't know how that came about. I ended up meeting Herbie later at the Thelonious Monk Institute. We ended up doing a 10-day tour of China. Yeah, it seems like things keep bringing me back to him. He's such a big part of my life, and I was honored to receive that scholarship.
For any musician, your first album's a pretty big deal, and Clockwork was one that debuted at #1, and that had to be, what kind of relief was that to actually be at a point where you had all of this education, you had all of this training, and then it's like, boom, here you go, and then it's received so well?
Oh, yeah, I was really excited about that. That was great, to know that people were digging my music. I saw things change pretty quick in my career shortly after that, which was great. I just try to keep it going, I'm trying to keep it going, that's all.
There's one thing about learning in the classroom in kind of a formal environment. You've been to very high-end prestigious institutions, but you've also been able to climb on stage and really learn from people like Esperanza Spalding, Terence Blanchard, Branford Marsalis, Payton. What have you learned from these that we would either consider big shots, legends, or veterans that have so much mileage on their odometer, either by osmosis or directly what they've given to you that you remember on a regular basis? What have they given you?
My first professional experience was with Donald Harrison when I was 17, when I first, the first month of school, he came to Berklee and wanted to put together an ensemble, and from there we ended up recording. And from then, from him I learned so much, and there's a lot of things you can't learn in the classroom that, you just have to learn it on stage. Seeing greatness up close was really inspiring for me, and, getting that experience. I think it was really convenient for me that it all was happening at the same time, so it was easier for me to put things into perspective, or to put things in the classroom in context immediately, since I was, performing and touring a lot while I was in school. I feel like it was a very wholesome education to have. Around the same time, Ralph Peterson and Terry Lynn Carrington, also were like mentors to me and, put me in professional situations. And, it's hard to explain the specific things I've learned from them, but, cause I've learned so much, but, just can say that I'm grateful for that experience.
And the other thing is that your age and stature and where you're at in the jazz world, I want to know from you, kind of from a temperature standpoint, how is jazz doing in America in 2019?
I think it's doing great. It's, I'm very inspired by, the direction the music is going as a whole. So much great music coming out, and the younger musicians have we have so many different resources, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, but it seems that a lot of these new artists are really taking advantage of all of, the resources they have, and are really raising the music to another level, and in a different way that I hope is appreciated by people. But, clearly it is, and, I hope it just moves forward with encouragement. I hope we can all encourage each other, and because it is getting better, in my opinion.
What was one of the first live jazz shows that you saw that really inspired you and blew your doors down?
Oh, wow. One of the first ones, I remember, the early ones, my dad took me to see Ahmad Jamal, and that was amazing. At Catalina Bar and Grill, we would always go in there. We got to see Chick Corea and Gonzalo Rubalcaba. I seen Roy Hargrove also at the Hollywood Bowl at an early age. That really was a memorable experience. Yeah, I saw a lot of shows. I'm trying to think. Grover Washington, and went to see Diana Krall, and let me see, a lot of great shows.
You know, the one thing that's interesting too about your lineage is that you started out in LA and now you're in New York. I mean, you're going from one extreme to another, and has that been a big adjustment for you to go from, one coast to the other, one pretty busy scene to another very busy scene?
Well, LA and New York are very different as well. Especially socially, I've adjusted to the way strangers are in LA and the way strangers are in New York, but you learn something different from, all the places you live. I've also spent time in, Boston for school and New Orleans. Every place is different. You can learn different things from different places. The real reason I'm in New York is just to be around the top players. It's really inspiring to see how much talent is in one city. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's mostly inspiring,
You've clearly dedicated your life to the jazz craft, and this is what you do. Why do you love jazz?
Oh, well, I love jazz because it's a part of my childhood, really, and it's a part of me, and it's a way of expression. It's a way to express things that can't be explained in words. And the genre has so many different components to it that it's the word jazz can kind of mean anything, it can, or it can mean a lot of different things musically. So it also gives the person a lot of freedom, the artist. Jazz is a way of life for me. I feel like I was born into the music, and, it means a lot to me. So
let's say you come to Kansas City, you get to play at one of our premier joints down on 18th and Vine, the Blue Room, and your publicist comes to you and says, I want you concisely to write up something that would tell the crowd, to tell a potential crowd member what they're going to experience from a Victor show.
You're going to experience some exciting music. It's going to be very personal, and I don't know, that's hard to explain. I would have to, it's a big part of, I've always thought recently that it's impossible to put tones and words together, or explain tones with words. I would just say, come and have a good time. You would definitely enjoy yourself. That's all I would say.
Cool.
I try not to get too specific. That would be my, goal.
Right on. So everything's going to come down to this. At this point in your life, everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, that you know yourself, you know your life, you know who you are. Tell me, who do you think you are?
I'm a father and a husband and a musician, composer, arranger, specializing in jazz music, coming from a deep tradition of a large scope of the music we call jazz. That's me. Yeah.
I like it, man. Victor, hey, thank you for taking a minute out. Thank you for the music. Good luck, and hopefully we do see you swing through Kansas City.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope to come by soon.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Los Angeles, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Victor for his time, cool, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.